15 minut nebo sekund? Proč neumím německy? Yep, that's me ironing my pajamas at a hotel. And you might be wondering, what on earth is going on here? So was I. You see, over the many years of making League of Legends videos, an occasional intrusive thought may enter your mind. Why am I here? Who am I? Were the years of grinding ranked worth it? When will I make another Who Would Win video? Do people know I have like 12 pairs of pajama pants? That Noxian building was there in Arcane 1. I have never been to an esports event. I also never vlogged before. Do I count as a vlogger now? Alright, story time. You see, every time Riot invites people for their events, they try to spread the creators around different events to give as many people as possible a cool experience. Which means, when it comes to esports, I am usually not on the invite list. Because Riot knows that I don't really cover esports, nor do I pay attention to it that much. I am indeed a very casual esports enjoyer. So when it came to the LEC finals, as always, Riot invited a bunch of esports personalities, including Snappy, one of the biggest League of Legends streamers when it comes to the Czech Republic. And they gave him the option to invite one more person. And so, despite the fact that we literally talked like once in our lives, he invited me. And so here I was at the airport in Munich waiting for him to arrive. The thing is, he would arrive like 6 hours after me. So there was only one thing I could do at this airport for all this time. Thank God, Talker's trials don't need good connection. Alright, even though the main objective of this trip was to get to the LEC finals, for this trip I actually had a checklist, or a quest log if you will, with the first quest being very simple. On our travels, me and my wife like to collect mugs. Specifically the Starbucks mugs labeled with the cities we visit. The reason why these are awesome is because the size is good, the shape is nice, and they are stackable, so you can have thousands of them in your cupboard. And since this was the first time I was in Munich, I had to get one. Thankfully, I spent 4 of my 6 hours at the airport playing TFT at a Starbucks. So it was time to get the first quest done. They didn't have it. It wasn't here where it usually is, which is weird because not every city has one of these mugs, it is based on the city's size, but Munich is massive! How is it possible that... Oh, they had it behind the counter and I am an idiot. But don't worry, that wouldn't be the only time I would be an idiot on this trip. Anyway, quest done, on to my second quest. I was going to LEC, with LEC being an event primarily focused on League of Legends players. And being one of those, I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. So, I had to deal with that. Quest complete. And then I still had a bit of time to get jump scared. Yep. That is Chi-Chi. Can anyone tell me why they didn't put Paimon on these for the obvious food joke? Anyway, then it was time to get out of there. So after that we did the classic thing of getting an Uber and arriving at the hotel at midnight. Now, the hotel was awesome, but more on that a bit later on. The first thing that we did is that we got into our rooms and noticed that we had one big shared bed, even though we were supposed to get 2 separate beds. But oh well, we were two Czech boys and we would be able to handle that. Though the second issue that came after that was a bit worse. It was midnight, so all the restaurants were closed. There was no way to get food! Besides that thing, I actually bought one of those, it was good. But besides that, the only available food in existence at that time was room service. And since we were in Germany, it was time to get a proper schnitzel and beer. And oh boy, was that a schnitzel. This photo won't even show how big it was, I didn't even finish it. So it was time to go to bed, and after that, the first day of finals arrived. And at that point, I finally had a bit of time to look around. And I noticed that everything around the hotel was themed after League of Legends. The welcome note was LEC. The hotel room card, which they allowed me to keep because I am a collector, not a hoarder, is also custom printed with League. And while normally you get a bottle of water in each room, we got a box of gummy bears and a monster. They knew the audience way too well. Anyway, then we made it down to breakfast, and let me tell you, I don't know where Riot is getting all of these hotels, but the food was good. And it was suitably German too. So after a very good breakfast and a few pictures of documentation for my wife, I got a chance to look around the hotel too. First of all, the hotel was gorgeous. And that is where things got cool. You see, when Riot is organizing these events, they obviously have to put a lot of people who are working on these somewhere. So it makes sense for them to pay for all the trips and the hotel rooms. The thing is, during these events, there is a lot of people. We're talking the LEC crew, the casters, the engineers, the arena crew, the players, the teams of the players, the creators, the writers who organize it, and whoever they invite. This is so many people that for Riot it would be easier to just book the entire hotel, right? That's why everything around was themed after League. That's why we got the custom League promo all around the lobby too. At that time, this was a League of Legends hotel paid by Riot. So this hotel was empty. I didn't want to record at the pool too much, it still felt awkward. How are vloggers doing this? So, after all of this exploration, we had about an hour before a bus would take us to the LEC Expo. And here is where we tackled my third quest. One that was arguably the most important one. When I was leaving home, I didn't have too much time to pack my things. Meaning that my pajama pants were not in the best shape. Now normally, I'm not really a guy that pays attention to my own appearance, but my wife always makes sure that I look my best. And I didn't want to disappoint her, so I would do it for her. Enter the pants iron. If there is one thing people know me for, it is my pajama pants. The thing is, my wife forbade me from using them because they are too wrinkly. Now Riot are absolute mad lads, hence why we have a hotel that has a pants de-wrinkler, or something like that. I have never used this. I have no idea what's happening. Hold on. Hang on. According to this, you slap the pants on, you turn it on, and stuff magically works. Which means this is totally not gonna catch on fire, right? It's totally gonna be fine. I'm so screwed. Ty kráso, tak tyhle ty kalhoty schořej, ty. A nic, jdu na to!
Prosím tě, můžeš mi říct, co teď děláš?
Já si prosím tě žehlím pyžamový kalhoty. A absolutně, tyjo, nevím, já se bojím, že mi schoří kalhoty, tyjo. Počkej. Teď se prosím žehlej moje pyžamové kalhoty. Naprosto, až je vytáhnu, tak budou naprosto perfektní a rozhodně nebudou hořet. 15 minut nebo sekund? Proč neumím německy? Kdybych uměl německy, tak aspoň vím, co se děje. See, I could have just abandoned the quest here, or I could have opened the cabinet to find...
Tam je celou dobu normální žehlička a tady bojuješ s tou pičovinou.
Yeah, after an hour of battling with irons. We were decked out and we had to go, because at that point the bus was waiting for us. Which is why it was so cool to see that the elevator was constantly full and we just couldn't get down. So we ran down 13 floors. Well, at least someone had a fun time here. Or it was a murder scene, I don't judge. Anyway, we made it in time and now it was time to leave. Where am I? This is the LEC Expo. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Expo is basically a place to celebrate esports. Think of a tiny esports theme park. So of course there was a bunch of things to do. But more importantly, there was a bunch of freebies to get. And as I said, I'm a collector, not a hoarder. Perhaps my favorite thing to do here was the jungle race. You would throw balls into holes, and if the ball dropped down, the jungle monster would move forward. This was so silly, it was amazing. And when I played, I won. And my prize was a masterwork chest. Here you go. Someone use it and tell me what you got from it. Next up, Uber Eats also had a stand there. So we are here at a very special version of Summoner's Rift, because we only have 2 lanes. And I mean, we all know Twisted Tree Line, we all loved it. Riot eventually took it down. But you know what? There's a lot of river. You know what? River Shen would really love this map. And I think it would be only for River Shen. Though it looks really cool. And I love that there are actually two separate dragon pits. Okay, that's a really cool detail, because there's one. There's one on the other side. I did not even notice the well on both sides, actually. It's a spawning point. And you can see that all the players are playing as Uber Eats bags, burgers, and sushi. No other champions were available at the time of this map. Well, that was Uber Eats. And you know what else could also eat? Mordekaiser, who had his own schmarrn here. I had to Google what that is. It is shredded pancakes. Do you think that's canonically Mordekaiser's favorite food? Also, this was here for the promo of Mordekaiser getting into Wild Rift. Of course, Kia being the LEC sponsor means they also had a place here. They gave us these amazing fans, which are great during the heatwave. Next to them, G2 also had their own stand and Fnatic was on the other side. Which was pretty cool, considering that these two would meet in the finals. But I don't get why G2 needs OnlyFans. Anyway, finally, there was also a replica of Silco's table, so here I had to do my thing. Alright, so we are here at Silco's desk, and I'm here to do one job, and that's to explain literally every single item on the table here, because this is a perfect replica. Which means we definitely have a breather that was worn by Marcus, which you can tell by the fact that it is actually destroyed by graffiti by Jinx. Slight correction, it is not the Marcus's mask. It's just the same mask that Marcus used, and Jinx later stole it because the obvious reference is this one. Which is also here with all the grenades, everything is on my Jinx. Jinx is actually an item that was originally sold on the merch store. Of course, that's followed by a very actually highly detailed bomb that Jinx made. Next, we have an awesome glass of shimmer. Hold on, I'm actually gonna bring this, because this actually looks crazy good. I'm not sure if this is something that they've originally drank at LA. Now, there is a perfectly cut gem. Hold on, I'm gonna very, very carefully. I do not want to drop this. Very well cut, perfect hextech gem. This is actually a gem, which you can tell is a gem because it's cut. If it's not cut, then it's a crystal, technically. This is actually an amazingly well done mug. Now, another item. Oh, this is a really cool one. Another awesome item is, of course, this is Jinx's original torch, which was lit in episode 5 or 6. I don't know. It might be 6 actually. That's the torch with the blue light that everyone knows. I didn't even notice. I did not even notice the blushy right there. And of course, we have Silco's amazing shimmer injector, which he's using for his eye, which everyone knows. And this is actually the messaging case that was originally used by the first warden, which Marcus then later became. I forgot her name, but she died. That's a bit of a spoiler. I think we all know about that one. And lastly, I don't know if it's real rum, but I'm not gonna test it. Lastly, of course, besides these awesome stands, Riot also had their own meet and greet there. And I couldn't believe they had my favorite fantasy writer Tolkien there. Anyway, this place was amazing and I can't believe Riot made an entire statue of Jarvan for this. I'm a dad, okay? I can afford these jokes. So now, with the expo covered, we had a bit more time before the games would start. So we had to get some dinner. And since we were joined by Tyrannas, it would be only fitting to try some Italian pizza. In Germany. Now, as a proper vlogger would tell you, this was an awesome place. Great aesthetics, amazing details. But maybe change the candles? I'm not sure what's happening with these. It does look classical, but maybe the candles shouldn't defy the laws of physics. Also, the pizza was actually great. I'm just scared of the candles. So if you're in Munich, give the Italian shot a shot. Anyway, then we headed back to wait for the bus, and that is when the future started catching up with us. And then the Ionian cosplay arrived, so it was time to go into the arena. That's right, it was time to witness the games. Now, before we get to the arena, I have to tell you, this was my first esports event. I've been covering League for almost 15 years now, and I have never attended anything. Which is why the moment I stepped into the arena for the first time felt so awesome. The camera will never do this justice. And this is actually why I decided to make this video. Normally people might talk about what the players do and how good the games were, but I know nothing about that. So instead, let me review the event itself. I mean, I had fun, can't you tell from the social media posts? So, on the first day, the arena was about 65% full. There were some holes in the seating, and that could be because the scalpers did not sell their tickets, but also it could be because this was happening in the middle of LCS and right before the Worlds, and I know people will try to snipe those. Also, this was just the first day. Of course, the first game that was happening was between G2 and Mad Lions. But before that, I did not expect the trophy itself to have its own arrival ceremony. And after that you get the classic team arrival and all that jazz you can probably experience from home. Now the first special thing I have to mention here is simply witnessing everything live. It is actually so cool to see the production live. Seeing the casters behind the desks only to look up and see them on the screen. Not to mention seeing the player screens during the games. It really had the vibes of a live concert. And that feeling went wild as the game started. Champions were banned, champions were picked, and sometimes people went wild over some picks. I mean, I didn't expect all the cheering over Yasuo being picked. Which is where I realized I am the outsider here. Thankfully, Snappy and Terranes were there to explain all the hype points. Because I may know lore, but I don't know the competitive lore. Regardless, the first cool thing I noticed is how well connected the game is to the arena. During the picking phase, the lights would just roam around. But every time a champion was picked, all the lights focused down. This kinda forced you to pay attention for a moment. And it was a great indicator that something important was happening. Also, right behind the players, you had this panel of dots which kinda simulated the crowd. And as you'll see later, that panel also reacts to the game. And speaking of the crowd, it was so much fun seeing the camps of the teams hyping people up. And the crazy thing is, I've heard this is pretty average. Usually these events have multiple screens in the arena. One for a separate view of the picking, and the other to have all the dazzle on it. So usually things are even better. And again, please remember I have never been to an esports event, so even the tiniest dumb thing seems cool to me. And speaking of which, there are so many tiny cool dumb things around the arena. For example, the Cowman! I don't know who you are, sir, but you were amazing at hyping up the audience. It is literally just some dude in a cow costume mimicking Alistar. And as he's ringing the cowbell, the audience responds. Anyway, with that, the first game started and more details rained down on me. Every time First Blood happened, the arena bathed in red. This also happened every time an objective was taken. For Baron and Herald, the arena went purple. And depending on which dragon was slain, the arena was filled with the color corresponding to the element. These details just made the arena feel alive. And we were still in the first day, where the atmosphere was good enough. Anyway, with that, the first game ended, and I'm pretty sure G2 were the first one to get a win. And so it was time for a break. And lo and behold, there was a lot of things to do around the arena too. Besides the food stalls, which, but you know, we were in an arena, so the pricing was nothing to write home about. Of course, we got some cool photo booths where we could meet the shopkeeper himself. As a reward, we got a gingerbread, which my son loved. You could also 1v1 other people for prizes. And KitKat being the big sponsor, of course they had a massive area where they let people make their own signs. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to make one too, but then it dawned on me. The reward for making a sign was a freebie. And since it was in my quest log, I had to do it. Now, the thing is, I don't know jack about esports. So instead of trying to make some kind of a clever sign, I just decided to make a lore joke. In the WoW community, I always liked the Garrosh did nothing wrong. So I wanted to do that, but in League. Now, there is a lot of misunderstood champions in League of Legends. My favorite is probably Singed. Before Arcane changed his character, Singed was a scientist who did some incredibly bad things to people. And I mean, we're talking about the most brutal experiments this universe can offer. And he did it because he's trying to figure out how to prolong mortal life. And to make things even shadier, he only ever did his experiments on people who didn't have any family members and they didn't have any friends. So the society wouldn't even notice if Singed kidnapped them. Which means, yes, he is my favorite horror-styled villain from this universe. So, after a few messed attempts, I finally made my lore joke sign. And then I noticed I'm in Germany and this sign can be portrayed in a totally different way, and worst of all, my stick figure drawing is not helping. So that was the second time I realized I'm an idiot on this trip. The good news is I secured my free Poro, quest complete. Anyway, then we got back to our seats and the second game happened, where Mad Lions got it back to 1-1. And that is where I want to give a shout out to the arena crew. You see, this entire time, these guys are working overtime. For example, you always have someone with a camera rig recording the players. It doesn't matter that you don't need a shot of them, since they all have their own webcams and they may be in the middle of a game. But what if something interesting happens? What if they got a crazy emotional burst? Well, you have a guy who is always recording the players from an interesting angle, just in case. Besides that, there is also a trophy camera guy. This guy has one job, to record the trophy at all times. What if the production wants to do a cool transition to the trophy, huh? Also, I like the cleaning crew wiping the tears of the team who lost after each match. Anyway, during the second break, Riot actually gave us a snack package. So, we could review the game and talk about what's happening. Or, because I don't know what's going on, I can give you a snack review. So, we got a banana, a homemade sandwich, a tiny tortilla, and a tiny chocolate bar. I think people were excited about something here. Long story short, the snack was pretty good. And now I am wondering, this was a homemade sandwich. Was there a writer whose job it was to make these? Oh well, the day kept going. I got joined by Dams for a couple of games, which was cool because he was with G2 and G2 was doing really well and I just like to see people happy. So G2 made it to the finals and overall I had a blast. So we made it back to the hotel and tomorrow it was time for something else. And oh boy, was it something else. So, on the day of the grand finals, the atmosphere was immediately different. Not only did the arena fill up this time, but oh man, do people really like G2, I guess. And I don't blame them. They have Sonic the Hedgehog as their mascot. Jokes aside, I've heard this guy is the best in person. So, for the grand finals, there were two big updates. The Bio clap sticks got restocked and you could find them under every seat. Of course, I took an extra pair and have it at home unopened because I am a collector, not a hoarder. But more importantly, the entire arena got these. These blinking wristbands not only reacted to the objectives, just like the lights in the arena, but their internal timer was offset, so they could pulse in waves. Can you tell I am hyped about these dumb things? Not to mention that they were all carefully set in such a way that when nothing was happening, they pulsed for the red side or the blue side. And in a way, this separated the entire arena into two halves. And again, I may be a baby witnessing all of this for the first time, but seeing this in person was just so cool. Anyway, with that the grand finals happened and things went wild. The opening ceremony was cool, though I have heard that the LCS, for example, did it a bit better. But the best part was still the atmosphere during the games. And so, when a big play happened, oh boy could you feel that in the rumbling. But in general, it was obvious just how much people were enjoying their time here. So of course, a big wave couldn't be missing. And this was the general vibe of the event. just a bunch of people having fun around League of Legends, which is kinda unheard of, right? For me it was extra fun because on one side I had Theranas who was cheering for G2, and on the other side I had Snappy who was cheering for Fnatic. I was also kinda cheering for Fnatic because for some reason every year I put Fnatic as the winner of my pick'ems. I never get more than 12 points on my pick'ems. And also Fnatic has a Czech player, so I guess I can be rooting for my own team. But oh well, the victory went to G2. And that is really the end. Sure, we went to McDonald's at midnight, and sure, there was a G2 after party, but I am not really a party person, and we did have a flight somewhat early the next day, so we had to be responsible. So overall, I have to say, if you have the resources to do it, I highly recommend attending one of these events. And going forward, this will be my benchmark. So, at the end, I got a bunch of freebies for myself, I can finally call myself a vlogger, and to test my benchmark, Riot, please invite me to the World's Finals, thank you.